Hey people of Earth and elsewhere, welcome back to the channel where the content is spam and I am Crackers. I was just thinking about how just last year around this time the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fandom was hyping up after the announcements that Diamond is Unbreakable was getting its turn to be animated. Now here I am, looking back over the entirety of the experience and thinking, wow! I mean, no matter how bad a year people think 2016 was, I did spend most of my Fridays with a JoJo episode waiting for me when I got off work. While at a couple of points during that time, I did manage to do some small reviews of snippets of the series, but I did promise I would go back over what I thought of it as a whole when it was finished. So, without further ado, here's what I thought of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Part 4 anime adaptation, Diamond is Unbreakable. The good, the bad, and the doing. P.S. I'm not going to be nice about spoilers this time around. If you don't want them, don't watch this video. Seriously, the anime is finished and the manga has been out for years. Let me set the stage a bit with a story. I decided to give JoJo a try back in early 2015, and I very quickly caught up with the anime. Not to be deterred from continuing the epic story of the Joestar bloodline, I quickly found a website to read the translated manga on, picking up directly with Part 4 as Stardust Crusaders animation was finishing at the time. Other than a few phantom doing chapters spontaneously appearing between the scanlations I could understand, I managed to breeze my way through Part 4 and onward. In other words, I love JoJo as a whole, and Part 4 was a wild ride despite what seems to be its derogatory nickname, JoJo's Bizarre Slice of Life. It's not derogatory, that's just what it is. No doubt Diamond is Unbreakable takes a serious turn away from the style of its predecessors, Phantom Blood, Battle Tendency, and Stardust Crusaders. But I never really understood why it was people thought that was such a bad thing. I'm willing to bet that most of the complaints come from the anime-only fans who were used to the style and execution of the previous parts, and I'm not going to say that I blame them. It can be hard to adjust to the sudden change of art style and direction that was so much less subtle than between the last parts that, even to me, as someone who should have expected as much, found it a little off-putting. However, I'm willing to bet that a good number of them found the anime to be just as bizarre and entertaining as it took its course. If the comments on Crunchyroll have any indication of that anyway. That being said, as a whole, how is Part 4 so different and yet so JoJo? Well, the anime follows its source material almost to the letter, so that's what I'm here to discuss. First, anyway. Back when the series was first being teased, to us there were essentially two reactions, based on the art style anyway. One, I hate it, where did all the burly muscle men go? And two, David Production made the right choice taking Araki's later style instead of the old one that carried through the first few chapters. Part 4 is in fact still JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and a continuation of the amazing JoJo saga, but it's also the beginning of a new generation and new style as a whole. With that said, of course it's going to look different, and Part 4 is the perfect jumping-off point for the major change in design. I like to split the JoJos themselves into three groups. Jonathan, Joseph, and Jotaro are the first generation of JoJos, and Josuke is the start of the second generation. Not only how the series looks, but how the opening themes are handled, are the first clues to this. Now, how about the actual show? Like many, many, many other fans of JoJo who were previously acquainted with the town of Morio, I knew what it was that I wanted to get out of this anime, which pretty much boils down to a faithful adaptation of the source material, because I loved it so much. And right from the get-go, in the first minute and a half of episode 1, David Production was delivering the goods. Allow me to just elaborate. Our introduction to this series starts with a Moriocho radio jingle that I'll admit I got attached to the second or third time it played in subsequent episodes, and we pan around the average-looking town. We are led into a house and see various shots of what appears to be a woman cooking breakfast, only to pan down at the last moment to ominous fading music. The hand that has been in view this whole time is not attached to a body, and as a drop of blood falls off of it, the title appears. Well, slice of life indeed. No, this did not happen in the manga, and I'm sure it took us all by surprise. David Production's staff seemed to have started out in full swing, exercising their creative liberties to give us a great show. After this intro, we jumped into the stuff that I remembered, and the anime follows the manga almost panel by panel. I said in my first impressions video that the distinctly more comic-like style of animation was a little peeve of mine initially, but that didn't last too long. The animation is not what I would call the best I've seen by any means, but it does more than just get its job done. With the exceptions of episode 21 and 27, which were handled by a different animation crew, so things looked a little funnier than usual. The addition of the glowing auras around the stand users as their powers were active was a nice touch, and the stands in general were really fun to see. Also, let's just note that the Blu-ray releases tend to fix a lot of the animation problems, so we can expect that, and fewer black censor blobs in the future. The accompanying music is performed by the same people who did the Stardust Crusaders background music, and I find that it carries over very nicely. The mood is set pretty well. Now, a quick look at the cast. Hey everyone, meet Josuke, our first JoJo of the second generation, who is slightly shorter than the previous 6'4" standard for JoJo's, but don't worry about that. According to Araki, he's not done growing yet. Truth be told, I was not a fan of the fourth JoJo before the anime started premiering, and I can't really say why or what it was that changed my mind, but I found myself liking Josuke more and more as I progressed through the story the third time. Likewise, the anime brought out the best in all of the other characters as well, from returning Jotaro to my favorite midget, Koichi Hirose, whose hair color I gradually came to accept over time, like much else in the series. I could go over the rest of the characters in depth, but that would take a whole other video. I will, however, bring up that Part 4 is the home to who I consider to be the best written antagonist in all of the JoJo series, and the subtle hints to him before his big reveal as the antagonist got me all the more hyped. Kira Yoshikage. As the story continued past the first 13 episodes, there were some bumps in the pacing that I can't exactly be convinced to overlook. Namely, the Cinderella episode. It was a lot of stuff that was crammed into one single episode, though I had predicted as much, and next to the fact that it was switched to come before the Kira revealed, whereas it was supposed to come afterward in the original manga, left a lot to be desired. As far as subplots, secondary characters, and borderline fillers go, I was actually looking forward to Cinderella, particularly the stand. I was perhaps more disappointed by the fact that as Cinderella gave Yukako a miracle makeover, barely anything was actually in motion during that entire sequence. And it makes me wonder, at what point, why are we still calling it anime if nothing was really moving in the first place? Also, a shout out to stunting Rohan's problematic encounter with Cheap Trick, which we never saw half of the shenanigans of, and the I Am an Alien arc, where the proverbial fat was also trimmed to fit the 39-episode time frame of the series. On the contrary, Tonio's episode, Let's Go Eat Some Italian Food, was perfectly paced and made a far better impression on me than it did in the manga, even though it was really just a filler anyway, and Tonio is never again truly relevant to the story. These are all personal gripes, of course, and there were a few very important places where the story was filled out, most notably the death of a certain Shigechio. I'll not talk too much about it, because I was actually upset about it. The anime made it that much more difficult to watch. Seriously, who actually batted an eye when it happened in the manga? It was strange for the events of Thursday, July 15th to be spread out the way they were, but other than taking out some extraneous details, it managed to work really well. And of course, the finale. Oh boy, what a finale. Now, I wasn't the only person who thought that episode 38 ended in a strange place, and I was really thinking, they can't stretch out the rest of this into 20-something minutes, can they? Well, in the end, that's what ended up happening, whereas I was hoping for a particularly prominent tease for the next part. Despite the disappointment of that not happening, I was very content with how the final episode played out, and the added epilogue made me very happy. Very happy. I am satisfied with it. But I have to wonder why they had to cut stuff out. I mean, it was longer than Stardust Crusaders, and at this point, is there anyone who would have really minded? Let's just go 52 episodes and have a whole year of JoJo Fridays. Though, I guess if you compare Part 3 to Parts 1 and 2, Part 4 is more closely, adapted in the sense that they cut stuff out of parts 1 and 2 as well, versus filling it out. Okay, last point. The openings and ending songs. Let's make this fast, so ending first. Savage Garden? Nice choice. It wasn't Smash Mouth or whatever people were expecting for some other reason. The sequence with the constant addition of characters and the slight shifts to the background was very nice to watch every single time it was available. Now, the openings. It could take some time, which is why I covered them last and probably need a whole nother video to get my points across properly, but here's the short of it. 3 theme songs with 7 to 8 variations between them was too much. I don't think we needed that many openings for 39 episodes. Individually, it's hard to say how they stack up as JoJo themes. After all, we've moved into a new generation, and it's okay that they got rid of the 3D models, but one thing or another seemed to be a bit off at most points. Crazy Noisy Bizarre Town sounds like a JoJo theme, at least to me it does, but doesn't really look the part despite the fun discotheque visuals. I liked it, and the remix wasn't bad, but it missed a lot of the intricacies of the past openings. They might not have been necessary for the first few episodes in some people's opinions, but I still have to ask why. Props to the fandom, though, at showing their meme skills as we waited for Koichi to get his stand. Chase was the exact opposite case, looking the part of a JoJo opening by every standard and beyond, but it didn't sound quite right. Yes, I have looked up the lyrics, and the double meaning does bring out the JoJo in it, but I feel like a theme song is missing something if I have to speak Japanese in order to understand how it works for a series. Yes, I still think it sounds a lot like other anime openings I've seen and heard, and I am not changing my mind on that front. Great Days is by far the best of the 3. I feel like it works as both a JoJo song and a JoJo video, even if there are a record-holding 4 variations to it. The Bites the Dust edit was clever, but probably would have been more effective if the fandom hadn't seen it coming and experimented with it over and over again before it actually showed up. But at least I finally got what I wanted out of it in episode 38. The sound effects were put into it. In summary, it was one season, guys. 39 episodes might seem like a lot, but 3 theme songs is still too much for me. Maybe 2 would work just to be fair, but properly executed, I think Diamond is Unbreakable could have worked fine with just 1. But hey, what do I know? Great Days was the best opening of Part 4. Finally, we get to my overall thoughts of the series. It was hype, and hype delivered despite my personal gripes. It's JoJo through and through, and I could barely ask for better with this anime. It was amazing. I guess you could say that 39 weeks of JoJo Fridays were some great days. Thanks to everybody who managed to stick through this video until this point and hearing me out. This was a longer one for sure. If you agree or disagree with what I've said, be sure to comment down below, or while you're there, you could suggest some future videos or art for me, as that is always welcome. If you liked it that much, consider subscribing to SpamCrackers or following me on Twitter to see what I'm up to. Also, you can find this and other art of mine on the DeviantArt account in the description, so feel free to check that out too. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. This has been SpamCrackers, wishing you a Merry Christmas. Ciao!